If you're thinking about moving your Oracle environments to AWS, Oracle have published a licensing document that specifies what are the licensing rules that you should follow if you want to deploy Oracle software on AWS. This licensing document is available on Oracle's web page, and it's called Licensing Oracle Software in Cloud Computing Environment. So what do we need to know about it? This document is not contractual. It's listed at the bottom of the document that the document is only for educational purposes. It is not contractual. It does only apply for AWS and Azure. No other public cloud vendor is listed. If you want to license Oracle on IBM or Google, you need to follow the same licensing rights that exist for on-premise licensing. What is Oracle saying about how to license Oracle in AWS? Oracle allows you to not license the full cloud platform because it would make it impossible to run Oracle software in a public cloud environment. But Oracle allows you to license only the vCPUs that you have for the instance that is running the Oracle software. For enterprise products, it allows you to license per vCPU, and the license factor is 0.5 per vCPU. So if you have 4 vCPUs, you would need 2 enterprise licenses. If multi-threading is not enabled, you need to use the 1.0 as a license factor. For standard edition products, Oracle allows you to license 4 vCPUs equals 1 processor license. If you would use an instance type that have 6 vCPUs, you will need to round that up to 2 CPU licenses. It's important to remember that standard edition 1 and 2 may only run on instances with maximum 8 vCPUs. If you are looking at moving your Oracle environments to AWS, you have 2 different options. Either it is EC2, which is simply that you buy a compute cloud server capacity with a number of X vCPUs. And the license model for that is that you need to bring your own license. If you don't own a license, you need to first purchase that license from Oracle. Remember that any licensing terms that you have for your on-premises licenses apply to the cloud. So if you have restrictions for which countries where you can physically deploy your Oracle software, those also applies for when deploying on AWS EC2. And the other alternative is Amazon for RDS. RDS is a managed service where Amazon manages the database, including backups, provisioning, and patching. You have 2 different licensing options. The first option is license included, and Amazon have an agreement with Oracle where they have the right to supply you with a standard 2 license. There's no other licenses. There's no Enterprise Edition. There's no WebLogic, only Standard Edition 2. And the second alternative is bring your own license. And that is for Standard Edition 2 or Enterprise Edition. And remember that any license terms that you have for your existing licenses apply when you deploy on RDS. Amazon for RDS is not suitable for companies that have requirements on licensing terms. For example, global corporations which need to cover many legal entities, or if you have expanded usage right in your licensing agreement, because the license that you are borrowing from Amazon is just a standard terms license. What is AWS optimized CPUs and why can it be licensing danger for companies? What is AWS optimized CPUs? It came a few years ago, but it's becoming more and more of a topic because Oracle made a change in December 2021. When you are deploying on AWS, AWS has pre-made instances based upon specific technical specifications, and they're often not correctly sized for running database workloads. Many databases require high memory, storage, and I/O bandwidth, but not much CPU power. Many database workloads are not very CPU intensive. For example, the instance X1E8X large instance type has a default of 32 vCPUs, but you can choose to launch the instance with AWS optimized CPUs with 4, 8, 12, or 16, or 20, 24, 28, 32, and so forth. But with CPU optimization, you can reduce the number of CPUs for that instance because you don't need all of that CPU power. But with CPU optimization, you can optimize the license cost by reducing the vCPUs that you may make available for your Oracle instance. But with CPU optimization, you can optimize the license cost by reducing the CPUs that you make available for your Oracle instance. In December 2021, Oracle made a small change in their cloud policy document on how to license Oracle in public cloud. And on the left-hand side here, you can see the old cloud policy document. And here's the key line. For the purposes of licensing Oracle programs in an authorized cloud environment, customers are required to count as follows. And it's simply counting the vCPUs. But what has changed is that for the purposes of licensing Oracle programs in an authorized cloud environment, customers are required to count the maximum available vCPUs of an instance type as follows. So what we're saying is that Oracle is saying that even though you have only allowed 8 vCPUs on this instance, you still need to license the full 32, because that is the instance type that Oracle claims that they need to license. We are not saying that Oracle is right, but we are just making you aware that Oracle's view of how to license Oracle software in AWS will differ from what AWS is saying. What can help you shape your strategy and determine which licensing strategy you should use? So first off, the cloud policy document. When did you purchase your licenses? If you purchase the licenses in 2018 or 15, should you not follow the licensing policy that was current at that time? Just because Oracle changed the policy in 2021, it applies retroactively to all your licenses. That's a decision you need to make. The cloud policy document is not contractual. It's specified at the bottom of the document that it's for educational purposes only, and it is not contractual. And if we go back to the document, the cloud policy document says maximum available. But when you use the CPU optimized feature, vCPUs that you are not available for you. They are actually disabled. If Oracle would have put in the language, you need to license all vCPUs allocated for you, then Oracle would have a stronger case that you need to license the full instance type, no matter if the vCPUs are disabled or not. If you believe that Oracle has the right, as they own the software, if they have the right to change the licensing policy as they wish, you simply avoid using AWS CPU optimized. We think it's important that you're aware that Oracle, again, have a policy document which is not very clear on how to license the software. It's open for interpretation. It reminds us about Oracle licensing on VMware, for example, or soft partitioning. And it means that you have a decision to make. Either you do what Oracle claims and their view, and then if you use CPU optimized, it makes no difference because you need to license the full environment. If you use AWS CPU optimized and you want to follow what Oracle claims, you need to license the full instance. But there are actually a good arguments for why you should not follow the cloud policy document and how you can interpret that document differently. I hope this was helpful.